Then George Bush signed the second biggest tax increase in American history.
Read my lips.
George Bush increased taxes on the middle class. Bush doubled the beer tax and increased the gas tax by 56%. Now George Bush wants to give a $108,000 tax break to millionaires. $108,000. Guess who's going to pay? We can't afford 4 more years.
This election is about change. Change in our party, change in our leadership, change in our nation. It's been 30 years since a Democrat ran for president and asked something of all the American people. I intend to challenge you all to do more and to do better.
Bill Clinton has the heart, the talent, the vision for the job. Governor Clinton entered the presidential race, pledging to fight for the forgotten middle class. He's talking about what average people are concerned about.
We've got to engage in the old-fashioned work of confronting the real problems of real people.
Clinton's message is new, young, moderate. The Philadelphia Inquirer calls him the moderate radical, saying Bill Clinton has sizzle and substance. If Clinton represents the Democrats in 1992, George Bush will know he's in a contest.
I refuse to be part of a generation of Americans that fails to compete in the global economy and so condemns hard-working, middle-class Americans to a lifetime of struggle without reward or security.
Governor Bill Clinton, born in Hope, Arkansas, educated at Georgetown University School of Foreign Service and Yale Law School, a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, elected State Attorney General at 28, the nation's youngest governor elected 5 times. He's the longest-serving sitting governor in the country. And this year, he was voted most effective in the nation by his fellow governors, both Democrat and Republican. Together with his wife Hillary and their daughter Chelsea, Bill Clinton has taken on the challenge to preserve the American dream, rid our streets of crime and drugs, protect our environment, restore the hopes of the forgotten middle class, and reclaim the future for our children.
Today, as we stand on the threshold of a new era and a new millennium, I believe we need a new kind of leadership. Leadership not mired in the politics of the past, leadership not tied to the old ideologies, but proven leadership, capable of reinventing government to help solve those real problems real people face.
This is not just an election. It's a crusade for the future. A crusade to restore the forgotten middle class. A crusade for the soul of America. But we need your help, your energy, your active involvement, and your financial support. Join the Clinton Crusade for the future. The crusade to restore the American dream. Contact the Clinton for President campaign. Together, we can build a brighter future for America.
Years ago, my son Albert was struck by a car crossing the street after watching a baseball game in Baltimore. Tipper and I watched as he was thrown 30 feet through the air and scraped another 20 feet on the pavement after he hit the ground. I ran to his side and held him and called his name. But he was limp and still, without breath or pulse. His eyes were open with the empty stare of death, and we prayed, the 2 of us, there in the gutter, with only my voice. His injuries, inside and out, were massive, and for terrible days, he lingered between life and death. Tipper and I spent the next 30 days and nights there at his bedside. Our family was lifted and healed in no small measure by an incredible outpouring of love and compassion and prayers from thousands and thousands of people most of whom we never even knew. We are part of something much larger than ourselves. All of us are part of something much greater than we are capable of imagining. And my friends, if you look up for a moment from the rush of your daily lives, you will hear the quiet voices of your country crying out for help.
Join us, work with us, win with us, and we can make our country the country it was meant to be.
Red-blooded, one bona fide citizen, and I'm proud to be called a Republican because I love this nation I was born in. Yeah, that's right, I'm a black man, and I'll fight for the truth that I must defend because I love this nation that I'm living in.
When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. Well, I guess you said what can make
that we're coming here biased, that we're coming here as liberals, that we're coming here to make...
I've watched MTV for 8 years, and I have never seen them portray anything political from an open-minded viewpoint where they showed the right and the left. They showed the left every time. To me, PC and liberalism is worse than McCarthyism ever was.
Yeah. Wait a second. What did you just say?
I said the PC movement is more stringent, it's more vindictive, and it's more dangerous than the McCarthyism and the McCarthy movement could have ever been and ever was.
The media has shown the conservative view as the religious right, and that's totally untrue. The true conservative view is everyone has control over themselves. It's laissez-faire. They have control over their own body. I mean, unfortunately,
what about the choices of the baby that's unborn? What about the fact that if we're going to give a woman a choice in this country, what about the women that are still in the womb? What about the women that are forming in the womb? The Supreme Court has already said that life starts at conception, and we should allow those people. We should allow those people to have the baby come out and let the baby decide.
Speaking of the media, for more than a month, the media have been telling us that Bill Clinton and Al Gore are moderates. If they're moderates, then I'm a world champion speller. My feelings about big government come from my experience. I spent half my adult life in the private sector. My opponent has a different experience. He's been in government nearly all his life. His passion to expand government knows no bounds. And he's already proposed, and listen to this carefully, he has already proposed $220 billion in new spending, along with the biggest tax increase in history, $150 billion, and that's just to start.
Are there important issues of character separating you from these other two men?
I think the American people should be the judge of that. I think character is a very important question. I said something the other day where I was accused of being like Joe McCarthy, because I questioned, I put it this way, I think it's wrong to demonstrate against your own country or organize demonstrations against your own country in foreign soil. I just think it's wrong. That maybe they say, well, it's a youthful indiscretion. I was 19 or 20 flying off an aircraft carrier, and that shaped me to be Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And I'm sorry, but demonstrating, it's not a question of patriotism, it's a question of character and judgment. They get on me, Bill's gotten on me about read my lips, and when I make a mistake, I'll admit it. But he has not admitted a mistake, and I just find it impossible to understand how an American can demonstrate against his own country in a foreign land, organizing demonstrations against it, when young men are held prisoner in Hanoi or kids out of the ghetto were drafted. Some say, well, you're a little old-fashioned. Maybe I am, but I just don't think that's right. Now, whether it's character or judgment, whatever it is, I have a big difference here on this issue. And so we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I couldn't do that. And I don't think most Americans could do that.
I think American people will make their own decisions on character. And at a time when we have work to do and we need action, I think they need to clearly understand the backgrounds of each person. I think the press can play a huge role in making sure that the backgrounds are clearly presented in an objective way. Then make a decision. Certainly anyone in the White House should have the character to be there. But I think it's very important to measure when and where things occurred. Did they occur when you were a young person in your formative years, or did they occur while you were a senior official in the federal government? When you're a senior official in the federal government spending billions of dollars of taxpayers' money, and you're a mature individual, and you make a mistake, then that was on our ticket. If you make it as a young man, time passes. So I would say just, look at all three of us, decide who you think will do the job, pick that person in November, because believe me, as I've said before, the party's over, and it's time for the cleanup crew.
Governor Clinton, you have 1 minute.
Ross gave a good answer, but I've got to respond directly to Mr. Bush. You have questioned my patriotism. You even brought some right-wing congressmen into the White House to plot how to attack me for going to Russia in 1969, 1970, when over 50,000 other Americans did. Now, I honor your service in World War II. I honor Mr. Perot's service in uniform and the service of every man and woman who ever served, including Admiral Crowell, who was your chairman of the Joint Chiefs and who's supporting me. But when Joe McCarthy went around this country attacking people's patriotism, he was wrong. He was wrong. And a senator from Connecticut stood up to him named Prescott Bush. Your father was right to stand up to Joe McCarthy. You were wrong to attack my patriotism. I was opposed to the war, but I love my country. And we need a president who will bring this country together, not divide it. We've had enough division. I want to lead a unified country.
Let me talk a little bit about trust and character. That counts very, very much. I'm bringing up my kids and my grandkids to believe that trust and character are important. Bill Clinton stands up and with a perfectly lovely face says, that's if you like his face, says, sort of, trust me, I've done all these wonderful things for Arkansas. Arkansas is the 50th state in the environment. His education program, which he raves over, is 25th out of 28 on the ACT tests. His teacher pay is the lowest of any state.
People are also concerned about the economy.
You bet they are, and they ought to be. We're in a worldwide recession, and every other country in the world, with very few exceptions, have had these horrendous fluctuations. England, France, Germany, Japan today. George Bush has kept us stable. We're the world's largest exporter. And thanks to George Bush, trade barriers are down. And if we get NAFTA signed by the Congress, you just watch this economy.
You know, we still have 7.6% unemployment. If you were unemployed, or you had a neighbor who was, wouldn't you be considering voting for Clinton?
No, because when we had Carter, we had 17% in Michigan alone, but in most states we had 11 or 12%. I certainly wouldn't want a tax and spend president right now with a tax and spend Congress. Those are all women's issues. Those are things women love.
I've interviewed a variety of women, and I've talked to a couple who said they voted for Reagan and they voted for Bush last time, but this time they're going to vote for Clinton because they think he cares about women.
Really? He does care about women, we all know that.
Bill Clinton says he'll only tax the rich to pay for his campaign promises. But here's what Clinton economics could mean to you. $1,088 more in taxes. $2,072 more in taxes. 100 leading economists say his plan means higher taxes and bigger deficits. $1,191 more in taxes. $2,072 more in taxes.
I saw the debate last night, and I just got one conclusion: it's all George Bush.
I still have a lot of confidence in my president.
I feel we need Bush to keep us from a big spending Congress.
I don't trust Clinton. The man says one thing and does another.
First he denies it, and then he says, well, maybe it happened. You can't trust him.
Clinton gets in, what we're going to see are more taxes.
One thing that's got me definitely for Bush is I remember what happened the last time we did things the way Bill Clinton wants to do them.
The world is in transition. The defining challenge of the 90s is to win the economic competition, to win the peace. We must be a military superpower, an economic superpower, and an export superpower. In this election, you'll hear two versions of how to do this. Theirs is to look inward, ours is to look forward.
Welcome back to Facing the Future with Bill Clinton. There are many people here that still haven't gotten a chance to ask a question. We're almost out of time. So we're going to start a rapid round of questioning now, sort of have some fun with short questions that can be answered with short answers, or even just a yes or no. What's your question for the governor?
If you had to do over again, would you inhale?
Sure, if I could. I tried before.
I have a question right here.
Yes. How has the national debt personally affected each of your lives? And if it hasn't, how can you honestly find a cure for the economic problems of the common people if you have no experience in what's ailing them?
Well, I think the national debt affects everybody. Obviously, it has a lot to do with interest rates. It has...
She's saying you personally.
On a personal basis, how has it affected you?
Has it affected you personally?
Well, I'm sure it has. I love my grandchildren. I want to think that think that they're going to be able to afford an education. I think that that's an important part of being a parent. Maybe I won't get it wrong. Are you suggesting that if somebody has means, that the national debt doesn't affect them?
Oh, what I'm saying,
I'm not sure I get it. Help me with the question, and I'll try to answer it.
I've had friends that have been laid off from jobs.
Yeah.
I know people who cannot afford to pay the mortgage on their homes, their car payment. I have personal problems with the national debt, but how has it affected you? And if you have no experience in it, how can you help us if you don't know what we're feeling?
I think she means more the recession, the economic problems today the country faces, rather than the deficit.
You ought to be in the White House for a day and hear what I hear and see what I see and read the mail I read and touch the people that I touch from time to time. I was in the Lomax AME Church. It's a black church just outside of Washington, D.C. And I read in the bulletin about teenage pregnancies, about the difficulty that families are having to make ends meet. I talk to parents. I mean, you got to care. Everybody cares if people aren't doing well. But I don't think it's fair to say you haven't had cancer, therefore you don't know what it's like. I don't think it's fair to say, you know, whatever it is, that if you haven't been hit by it personally, but everybody's affected by the debt because of the tremendous interest that goes into paying on that debt. Everything's more expensive. Everything comes out of your pocket and my pocket. So it's that. But I think in terms of the recession, of course you feel it when you're president of the United States. And that's why I'm trying to do something about it by stimulating the export, investing more, better education systems. Thank you. I'm glad to clarify.
Tell me how it's affected you again. You know people who lost their jobs and lost their homes? Well, I've been governor of a small state for 12 years. I'll tell you how it's affected me. Every year, Congress and the President sign laws that make us do more things and gives us less money to do it with. I see people in my state, middle-class people, their taxes have gone up in Washington and their services have gone down, while the wealthy have gotten tax cuts. I have seen what's happened in this last 4 years when, in my state, when people lose their jobs, there's a good chance I'll know them by their names.